International Commission of the Congo Basin was set up in the year 2000 as a specialized agency of the Economic Community of Central African States, CEMAC, to promote inland navigation and integrated water resource management. Now, over 20 years down the lane, the agency has evolved, positioning itself as a key driver of sustainable development, environmental protection, and conservation. In today's edition of the program, we are going to be receiving the Secretary General of that organization. Stay with us. The guest in today's edition of the program hails from Binjong Mamfe in the southwest region of Cameroon. She holds a master's degree in maritime administration and maritime environmental protection from the World Maritime University of Malmö, Sweden. She was formerly the director of maritime affairs at the Ministry of Transport. She has equally served as Cameroon's focal point to the International Maritime Organization, IMO, based in London. She is currently the Secretary General of CICOS. She is Madame Eno Ne Judith Efundem Agwo. Thank you so much for joining us in today's edition of the program.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
Yes, let's start right away by talking about your organization, the organization where you are the Secretary General. Tell us about CICOS, what it's all about.
CICOS, as you rightly said in your introduction, is an intergovernmental commission created in 1999 by the heads of the states of 4 founding countries, which are Cameroon, the Central African Republic, the Republic of Congo, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, where our headquarters is based. And at its formation, CICOS had a single mandate, that of promoting inland navigation. Because at that time, the heads of states rightly understood that the Central African sub-region is endowed with a lot of rivers, with very good navigational portions. And they saw inland navigation as a vector to socioeconomic development, social cohesion and integration amongst the countries and the peoples that share these water bodies. And so they set up the organization, or the commission, if you may, to promote navigational safety, because for navigation to serve as a tool for development, it must be safe. So that was CICOS's first mandate. But over the years, it was realized that promoting safe navigation cannot be done in isolation. There was a need to protect the navigational routes. In other words, to protect the inland navigation environment. So the mandate of CICOS, another mandate was added to its original.
Why was it necessary to protect inland navigation?
It is very important because water is a resource for inland navigation. At the same time, water is a resource for other uses, especially for pipe-borne water, because you may want to know that some of the populations are so connected to the rivers and streams that pass within their communities. And so therefore, wanton destruction of this natural environment would become a health threat to these populations. And then it impacts negatively navigation, because many people in these communities use the rivers as their natural depot for wastes. And so it impacts fishery stocks, and it promotes the growth of aquatic plants, and of course it impacts negatively the health of the population. And of course it affects safe navigation, because if you have, say, plastics that are drifting, right?
Yes.
It gets into the propellers of a vessel, and before you know it, there's an accident that has occurred. We have needs for hydropower development, for irrigation, for fishery development, for pleasure and leisure, why not? And of course, the primordial use of water for home consumption.
Now, the Congo Basin is the second largest river basin worldwide, stretching across 10 countries, 1/3 of the fresh water resources on the continent. Talk to us about the potentials of this basin and its importance in trade.
The governments of the 4 founding countries of our commission saw the inland navigation as a vector in promoting socioeconomic development. And of course, you know that to promote socioeconomic development, there must be interstate trade. Some of the countries are landlocked. And some of the communities, even within countries that are not landlocked, are so far from the main cities. But at the same time, these communities generate a lot of produce that need to be traded, you know, for the, to develop, to raise income for the families concerned and all of that. So you see that inland navigation now serves as a route for transportation, as a platform to create jobs in terms of trade, because there's an interesting phenomenon that is going on in the Congo River. You know, we have what we call floating markets. Okay. And what are these markets? They are just huge barges and vessels that converge, you know, they kind of rotate, that converge from time to time within one community. And the people are engaged in trade. You know, sometimes it's kind of trade by barter, but sometimes it's actually using a currency or legal tender as we know it. So it's very interesting when you watch how these people interact, how they exchange their goods, how they trade, how they... Sometimes you will not believe this, but children use these routes as a means of mobility to go to school. Okay. You know, they live in one community and the school is in some other community, and they need, you know, the navigation to be able to go to school, and even why not for healthcare. So it is very important.
Yes. What assessment would you make about, you're talking about the importance of the basin in terms of a trade? Practically, I mean, it's been over 20 years since the agency was created. How would you assess the economic return for member states?
You know, when the commission was created, the immediate objective was to unite the peoples. We may be from different countries, but there are very many communalities amongst the people. So that was the first factor, creating this cohesion and synergy amongst the people of the sub-region. That was the first one. And I think as far as that goes, if I have to give myself a grade on the scale of 1 to 10, we're at around 8. Okay. Yes. Sometimes it's difficult to create that cohesion, but with time...
Between people, especially from different cultures.
Yes, but with time, they realize that they have a common heritage, which is the basin. And so the cooperation has grown over the years. Another thing is, how do we allocate water resources? Because it is interesting to know that barely 1 month ago, there was the World Water Forum. And one of the key issues that was discussed was water as an instrument for promotion of peace. Because, you know, when countries have different needs in terms of using water resources, they look at national needs as opposed to regional or international demands. So everybody wants to protect their interest. But we at CICOS, we have been able to use water, that resource, as a source for integration, as a source for promoting peace.
As a source for economic development too.
Exactly, because we have developed a tool which is called the Water Allocation and Harvesting Tool, which demands that each member country that intends to harvest water from the basin for its economic development must be able to get not an authorization, but our commission gives an opinion on how that harvesting would affect upstream or invariably downstream countries. And when you can do that, when you can have countries doing that around a vital resource, it is very difficult for them to go to war over that resource, because there's always a platform for exchange, for discussions, for negotiations. And over the years, the member countries have come to accept that tool as a necessary input in using and managing water resources. So I think that's a big gain for the member countries.
And navigation was historically very important in the basin, but commercial transport on 3 main axes has diminished over time due to climate variability. My question is, how has climate change impacted the activities of your organization?
It has given our institutions more visibility, because things that people took for granted or member countries took for granted, or as you said in your introductory statement, we have a lot of water within the Congo Basin. So everybody thinks the water will always be there. But with the impact of climate change, that is telling people that, no, this water quantity would not always be available the way you see it. Now they listen to us. Now they know there is a need to cooperate. Yeah. Now they know that there is a need to go by the orientations that CICOS provides on the ground. So that's why I say it impacts our work positively. And you may want to know, there was something that I would want to chip in here. CICOS, the Congo Basin rather, covers a surface area of 3,782,000 kilometers. And some scientists hold that it has the first or the highest water discharge rate on Earth, which is 41,000 cubic meters of water a second. So the overriding belief is that we have an incredible amount of water. In the basin, you understand? But climate change has shown that that is not the case, because now what do we witness? Massive siltation. Longer periods of the dry season, water levels are reducing by the day. Vessels do not sail, as they used to do before. It was 12 months on 12, but now it has reduced to 8. In some areas, it's even getting down to 6.
I'm tempted to ask, because when I listen to you talk about the enormous potentials in water resources, we are looking at Africa, a continent which is badly hit by water crisis. How come we have such enormous potential, but the population keeps suffering? They don't have water.
But there is a fine line between having the water as a resource in the basin and converting it into a utility for home consumption, for hospitals, for homes, for schools, and what have you, for hydropower development. Our work is to inform, accompany member states on how to use that resource, on how to convert that resource into a utility. We are not into that
population.
Exactly. That is where we stand. And we do that because we do water resource monitoring on a daily basis. At each point in time, we can tell each demanding government that this is what, in terms of flow rates, in terms of discharge rate, in terms of evaporation, in terms of water temperature, this is what is available within the basin. So it is now to these governments to use this information to see how to transform the resource into utility.
I mean, there are other challenges that CICOS should be dealing with. We're talking about pollution of waterways from companies. Tell us more about the challenges CICOS confronts today.
Because of the huge expanse of the basin and the quantities of water, there is this feeling that, we can dump our wastes in the rivers and nature would handle it. But it's not always that. So we have a huge task sensitizing the riverine populations that this area that you consider as your dump yard is actually a resource that you have to guard for your well-being.
It's very unfortunate, though, because the same place you dump is the same place people
you go for to harvest water. Especially for domestic use.
Yes.
So you have those cases where we have lots of ill health challenges that arise from poor water, from consuming poor water or bad water or unsafe water, So we have the task of educating the population. And it is interesting to know that we have negotiated and have been able to get financial support from the ADB.
The African Development Bank.
Yes. We are going to develop the concept and an approach to educate the populations. And our target are the younger generations, because these are people who still have a longer time to be within the basin, and we think that once they grasp the information, it is going to better serve to preserve the resources within the basin.
We also have the problem of companies, oil spills.
Oil spills are not a threat to us as such, because we don't have a lot of it, but it could be, but it's not as much as mining. Mining activities provides a major threat. And of course, urban runoffs from companies who just think that they can drain their wastewater and other forms of waste into the basin. And that's the reason why we came to Douala. I'm
going to come back right back to you, but we're going to take a quick break to watch this report that was done for us by Gladys Ambo-Dibang. For the past days, CICOS has been meeting the nation's economic capital, Douala, to discuss ways of handling oil spills from river units and port platforms.
Oil spills make up about 12% of the oil that enters the ocean. The rest comes from shipping travel, drains and dumping. This waste oil pollutes the river and consequently threatens aquatic life and human health.
There's massive pollution of our inland navigational water routes. There is an upsurge in accidents due to pollution, especially when we have drifting garbage, There is poor health for the crew, the riverine population, and even for those who use some of our rivers and its tributaries for pipe-borne water supply. There's even another impact on the ecosystem. It is known that there's some fish in some parts of the Congo Basin that are no longer fit for human consumption. because they have absorbed a lot of heavy metal deposits since the rivers are becoming like the natural garbage.
These, according to experts, are caused by mining industries that throw their industrial waste into the river. Member states of the International Commission on the Congo Basin are meeting in Douala this April 18, 2022, to validate the Waste Management Directive for the river units and the common regulations relating to the collection, deposits, and reception of oily and greasy waste arising from the operation of the said units in CICOS space.
It is only normal as a regional organization to bring in our little experience in terms of technical experience, in terms of lesson learned from other basin organizations, to see how we can support our member countries to improve on protecting the environment of the basin, and by implication, the health of the populations that depend on the water resources and other natural resources of the basin for their livelihood.
It is expected that the validation of the Waste Management Directives by the 6 member states, that is, Cameroon, the Republic of Angola, the Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Gabon, will be a major factor for change for environmental protection in CICOS space.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're on to Planet Rise on Canal International, and we're going to continue with our discussions. I'm going to turn right back to my guest. After watching that report, how would you say, how serious is the problem of oil spills, and how does it affect aquatic life?
Oil spills is a threat to all water bodies, and the Congo Basin is not an exception. Fortunately for us, this far, we haven't witnessed, any major incident or accident arising from oil spills, but the threat remains all the same. So we are keying into this old age adage that says prevention is better than cure, So, but there are other forms of pollution within the river, and which we have come across that a lot. The natural thing is like all vessels plying the river, all the waste generated on board are just dumped into the rivers. Used, or the waste from oil, used oil, from food, from sanitational waste dumped into and even hospital waste. You will not believe that. So I want to tell you a little story. I started work with CICOS in April 2016, and we normally would travel from Brazzaville to Kinshasa by using a high-speed boat, and that would take us like 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
And at that time, you wouldn't find a single waste in terms of plastic waste floating. But now it's an eyesore. So over the years, we have witnessed that there is like a laissez-aller policy in waste management around the port areas. So we had a long negotiation with the European Union, and they financed the project that brought us to Douala. One of the main activities, and I want to think that it is one of our blueprints within this project, is that on waste management. So we developed these tools on management of oily waste generated by vessels that ply the Congo Basin water routes. And we had gone through the member countries and discussed with them, presented our work to them, and got their approval at national level. But because we are a regional institution, we know that for it to have the credibility it deserves, we had to organize a regional workshop to bring the countries together so that whatever differences were amongst them when these documents were examined at national level could be discussed and ironed out at the regional level to have a regional connotation to the tools we are developing. And that's why we came to Douala. And it is interesting to note that this workshop regrouped representatives from member countries from the Ministries of Transport, the Environment, and of course the National Centers for Hydrologic Development and Research. And all of them just kind of keyed into the vision that we have, which is very interesting.
Yes.
So they validated the document. That's what I mean by keying into the vision.
I understand.
Yes.
So what I want to ask is sometimes resolutions are adopted, but on the ground, they are not being applied. What measures are going to be put in place to make sure that the resolutions that were adopted in Douala are going to be applied? Normally, to get the results
we expect? Yes, that's a very good question. Normally what we do is once a tool is approved at regional level and it is signed by the Ministerial Council, which so far is the highest decision-making organ, we accompany the member states in the implementation. So we are going to work with them and develop a plan for implementation. And this plan goes, like all other regulations, through incorporation in the corpus of their national laws. So we are going to see that that is done. And the interesting thing is that once the tool has been approved and adopted at national level, it serves as a dual-edged sword, if I may say, meaning that the country that starts implementation would implement it on all vessels that come to their ports. So if, for example, Cameroon is not implementing, but a vessel from Cameroon goes to a port in Congo Brazzaville, the provisions of that regulation would be implemented against the Cameroonian vessel. Okay. You understand? And at the same time, if a ship or a vessel from the Congo Brazzaville comes to a Cameroonian port, the government of Cameroon cannot impose any, cannot implement the rules on that vessel because Cameroon has not implemented it in its own country. So it's like a horsewhip to all the countries. So what we normally do is there are some countries that adopt and implement very easily, like the Republic of Gabon. I must give them that credit. Okay.
Yeah, what about the Republic of Cameroon, your home country?
No, I wouldn't want to talk about Cameroon. I'm talking of those who do it very promptly. Okay. Cameroon does, but not as promptly as Gabon. Okay. So I'm looking at the best. Yes, and we don't want to promote mediocrity. We always look at the best and encourage everybody to rise to that level.
So would you say you are satisfied with the outcome of the meeting in Douala?
Yes, I am. I am satisfied. I am satisfied in terms of the acceptance of that vision by member countries. The next level would be how soon do they start to implement? This project runs for 3 years. We are ending year 1. So our ambition is that as we step into year 2, we are going to press to encourage the member countries to start with the implementation by, first of all, incorporating it into the core of their national legislation, and then seeing once that is done, implementation is possible. Okay, we remain very positive.
Okay, we are almost getting at the end of the interview. But before we go, I just wanted to find out from you about CICOS. How important is conservation, environmental sustainability for CICOS?
It is a key issue with us. Issue in the sense that a key concern, and it is very important, because what we do it in a natural environment. We are not into laboratories. We are there on the field with the populations. And everything that touches the population emanates from the environment. You understand? So to us, preserving the environment is capital. That is our natural heritage. It is capital to preserve it. And there can be no sustainable growth if you don't preserve your environment, you know, because it impacts the health, it impacts the resources that you have, it impacts the livelihood. Therefore, it impacts you who depends on that environment. It's very capital to us.
Okay. Any last words?
Any last word is that I want to encourage all member countries who have participated in this workshop to go beyond the finish line of this workshop. The finish line is the validation of the tool for managing oily waste. That they have to go beyond that validation, which is incorporating it into their national laws and, of course, implementation.
Thank you so much, Madam. It was such a pleasure having you on our show, Planet Rise. We hope you're going to come again.
Thank you for having me. We shall be back.
And for all of you watching at home, thank you so much for watching. Take another rendezvous in a fortnight. But for now, it's goodbye and God bless.